so many young guys playing well. Is this kind of what you expected? I know you guys knew you had a special freshman class, but this many guys playing big roles?
No, probably not this much, like you said. But I just think back on the conversations we had in the spring and the preseason going into this year, feeling like there was a little bit of a gap of playing time coming off of last year, and trying to figure out what that was going to be like this year because we had so many unknowns of guys who either are in the program 2 and 3 years who didn't have experience, or the young guys coming in. And so there's a lot of competition going on across the board, and that's the good thing. And I think you're starting to see guys settle into roles.
How is CJ feeling, and are you confident he'll be able to play this week?
We'll see how today goes. I thought the week helped him, and it sounds like it's going in the right direction. So we're hoping for a great day of practice today.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Yeah, Ryan, just to follow up on that, if CJ is fully healthy, in your mind, is he your starter on Saturday?
Yes.
And you were asked about a lot of the young guys playing. Like when you look at that, do you feel like you need those young guys to keep coming and play bigger and bigger roles as the season progresses if this team is going to achieve its goals this year?
Yeah, and I think that in 4 games you've seen a lot of progress across the board, but there's still a lot to be done. And if we're going to get to where we want to be this season, then these guys are going to have to continue to build. And it's everybody. It's not just the young guys. It's the older guys who maybe haven't played as much either. And it's just continuing to get back to work. And, I think sometimes you go into a season with certain expectations of what's going to come. And whether it happens or not, that's, unique to each individual. But working and putting in days of work every day is what's critical, and just grinding through all that. And so here we are back in conference play, and I think we're better than we were 4 weeks ago.
Second row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just one more thing about the quarterbacks, assuming he is feeling a little sore. Are you giving Kyle any first team reps at all this week, just as a security blanket, just in case CJ's not ready to go on Saturday?
I mean, we spread the reps around, and we'll just see how everybody's feeling this week, and then we'll kind of go from there. But typically, the way that we do it is, whoever's starting in that game will typically get the majority of the first team reps.
Second row right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Brian, you said after the game you wanted to wait to review Kayvon Pope and some of the details surrounding that incident. What ultimately made you want to go in the direction to dismiss him from the team?
Yeah, I mean, there was an incident there that, we addressed, and, he's removed from the team. And so, our focus right now is on Rutgers. But, there has to be consequences for actions. And certainly, for him, his emotions got a little bit out of hand there. And, I thought he's done a good job of taking accountability, and we'll focus on moving forward.
Second row left, Nathan Means, Cleveland.com. Nathan Barrett.
With the quarterback evaluation, how do you, at this stage of the season, I assume it's kind of going on all the time, but balancing that, the difference between who's better right now and who might be better in November? Like what is going on with that, and how do you assess that?
Yeah, I mean, you just do it like you do every other position. You try to project the best you can based on what you see in practice, and then, what you're going to see in a game. And you do whatever you think is best to go win the game that week. And so that's what we're doing. You look every day at practice, and hopefully there's growth along the way. And so that's what we're going to do. I mean, we have 3 young guys that are, doing this all for the first time. And so while that can be, a challenge, it's also good because everything you're investing, you're hoping to get back in the future.
Is it part of who you decide to start each week, who that helps more in November? Do you see what I'm asking there, or is it all just about who is the best quarterback for this next game?
Yeah, I think that you always want to plan for the future, and it's not really about saying what's exactly going on this week. Is what's your body of work going to be by the end of the season.
Second row right, Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Ryan, does the in-game, I know this is a little bit of a hypothetical, does the in-game decision-making change at all at quarterback? Before the first 2 weeks, Kyle had just never been on the field, so you probably didn't want to put him in that situation. Now that he started, will that enter your thoughts on a game day if CJ's struggling or looks hurt or anything like that?
Not any more than it was a couple weeks ago. I think now it's great to have reps under our belt so that we know what we have. But I've said from the beginning it's going to take all 3 guys to get through the season, and it's already week 4, and all 3 guys have played. So again, we'll assess it this week and see, how guys are feeling and go from there.
When you look not just at your team, but Clemson or Oklahoma when they struggle, it seems to be a trend across college football. Do you think, you can only talk about your own team, I guess, but how much of that is what everybody went through a year ago? Are we underestimating how significant that is for players?
I think you bring up a good point. I think that for us, certainly there's been a little bit of recalibration because coming off of last season, there was a lot of missed play and missed reps, and so you came into this season with a lot of guys competing for a lot of spots, and and the truth is, at the end of the day, we have a lot of great guys in our program and a lot of guys who have worked really, really hard, in our program. But at the end of the day, it comes down to how you perform. And I think we have a great group of guys who are working really, really hard, and they're going to continue to do that. And the more that they understand this is about our team and not just about them, I think is very, very important. I think there's been a lot of changes as well in college football certainly in the last year, but in the last 2 to 3 years. That combined with everything that went on with COVID, I think there's a lot of dynamics at play here, and we're very, very fortunate because we have such great guys here. But I think it's something that's definitely, you need to recognize. Yeah.
Fourth row right, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
We've talked so much about young guys, so many young guys, and we've talked a lot about performance on the field. Can you take the temperature of the leadership issue of this team? Is it where you want it to be? Do you need older guys to step up? And the challenge of, when there's so many young guys, is there a void, leadership void?
Well, I think that when you actually get out there and play and do the things that you're expecting yourself to do, you feel more empowered to take more of a leadership role. I still think we do have some really good guys who maybe haven't had as much of an impact on the field as they would have liked, who have had great leadership. But I think that when you're on the field and you're playing games, if you put it on the field, then I think that you feel, again, a little bit stronger about taking that step forward in leadership. So it's evolving. Again, we do have some really good guys who have shown good leadership, but as we're settling into these roles, I think that's kind of evolving over these past couple of weeks.
Another thing I would think would be a challenge is quarterback's the most important position. You've got freshmen and true freshmen here. In terms, again, of the leadership issue, is it a challenge to get older guys to rally around somebody who's 18 years old? I mean, in your experience, how do you navigate that?
Well, I think that in the perfect order of things, your older guys are the ones who are the leaders, who are the ones who are playing, and sometimes when you have younger guys come in, that does change the dynamic a little bit. But that's football, and every team has its own different journey along the way, and I think this year that we're experiencing some of that, like you're saying.
Third row right, Tom Moore, BuckeyeScoop.
Ryan, when you are making an evaluation on a fourth down, go for it, punt, kick, whatever, what factors into that decision for you? Game state, quality of opponent, all that kind of stuff. How much does the quality of the opponent change what you might do in that kind of situation?
Yeah, I think there's a lot that goes into that, and certainly have studied all the analytics that go with that. Certainly when I was in the NFL and now in college, but there's so many things that come into play, like where you are in the game, where you are field position wise. Does it make sense to punt and just gain 15, 20 yards, or if you get a touchback, are the 3 points really worth it in that moment, or do you feel like it's a higher scoring game and you gotta get a touchdown? But I think the other part that's important is, do you have a good play? It's one thing to go for it. It's another thing to know you have a good play in that moment. It's 4th and 2 on the plus 35 yard line, and you feel really confident this play is going to work, or man, I don't have much here. We're going to punt. And I think that all those things come into play for sure.
There are companies that do professional like championship analytics, for example, producers like binders for schools. Do you guys have a source for that kind of stuff? Is that stuff you produce internally? Is that how do you generate those?
Yeah, we study that internally here for sure, and I think that you look at those numbers and you look at the statistics, but there's so many different variables at play when you're talking about situations like that. I do think when you're in the NFL where everybody's pretty much equal and everybody has the same set of situation, then that's one thing. But I think in college there's just a lot of different dynamics. The conferences you know, the situations are just very, very different. And I think so much of it has to do with, you know, your team, you know, how you think the game is going and feel. But there's also some times where you got to look at the numbers on it to say, when is it worth punting, when is it worth going for it.
Fourth row middle, Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Right. Ryan, we've seen Travion seems establish himself as a starter running back. What would be the ideal carries for him? You know, assuming a normal game and not one like this past Saturday where you get up big and can get some other guys in the game. What do you kind of want the balance to be with your running back?
Yeah, usually, right. You know, right. We want to be balanced for sure, and we want to make sure that, you know, run pass is pretty equal. But yeah, right in the 20 carry range is usually pretty good. But we do have a lot of depth there too, so we feel like we can play some depth and keep him fresh. He still is young, but somewhere in that area is usually pretty good.
And we saw Master and Mayan. We didn't see Mayan 2 weeks ago. You mentioned he was missed practice. The balance between those two, is that a week-to-week thing, who comes in certain situations, or are those guys kind of set in a certain structure?
I don't know if it's set. You know, I think that Master ran hard last week. I thought he did some really good things, and he continues to build on that. You know, this is a guy who, you know, could have got frustrated, you know, along the way, but hasn't, has just kept working. And I've been very, very impressed with that, and he's playing good football right now, and he deserves to run. And Mayan, you know, is, you know, practicing a little bit better now, and he's working through some things, but, you know, we'll continue to work on those guys. But you can see both of them have the ability to do it. And it'll be a little bit week to week, but I think that Master has asserted himself here the last couple of weeks.
And just real quick, we saw Evan late in the game scored the touchdown. Getting him out on the field, I don't know what he figures to be this year. Maybe that, though, could be important for his future.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, Evan has a lot of talent. I think that, you know, this year is going to be very, very important for him to grow and build. But one thing that, you know, I think Evan's done a really good job of is not trying to compare himself to anybody else. And I think sometimes in this world with, you know, people who surround them with family, with people's friends, with social media, it's easy to do that. Say, well, you know, why aren't you doing this? Or, you know, compare yourself to somebody else. And that's not really a recipe for success. You know, the recipe for success is focusing on yourself and just getting better and having a long-term approach. And I think Evan's done a very, very good job of that. And I think you're going to see a really good player here in the future.
Go to the far right, Tony Gertman, BuckeyeScoop.
Ryan, you mentioned players finding their roles. Are you seeing that in the secondary as well as if Lathan Ransom moves back and then Cam Martinez moves in? Are you seeing that? Are you happy with what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, we have a bigger challenge this week, but I think you're starting to see guys make plays. I think you're seeing, you know, Denzel kind of, you know, settle into a role here. You're seeing Ronnie Hickman settle into a role. We have moved Lathan around a little bit, so he's working through that. Cam's made some plays, you know, but yeah, I mean, we're kind of looking to really solidify those roles, but it is still good to have some depth there and roll some guys, but you can see certainly there's not as much rolling as there was the first couple of weeks.
And then, do you provide any update on Harry Miller?
Yep. So Harry, you know, he's been dealing with some health issues, and he's gonna, you know, come back this week and be part of the team, which we're all excited about, and get back to work.
Second row right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Ryan, you probably went to bed about 2:30 on Sunday morning. Probably woke up about 4. I'm thinking.
Didn't sleep, but that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. What was the thought? What were the thoughts that were keeping you up? Was it dealing with the Kevon Pope situation? Was it, hey, I've got a quarterback deal. Here's my #1 quarterback. Going to be ready this week. Hey, Rutgers looks a lot better than it did 3 years ago. The Big Ten East looks a lot better than it did 2 months ago. Just kind of go through that litany and how you
Sure.
compartmentalize and think on different things at different times.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, you know, it's hard to sleep because your mind races and all those things go through your mind. But specifically, yeah, to share my thoughts after the game, I was very, very excited about just the energy after the first drive. I just thought we played harder. I thought we had energy on the sideline. I thought the guys played and had fun across the board. I just thought you just felt that on the sideline. And then certainly, you know, the incident that happened just it bothered me, and so I had a hard time sleeping that night. But looking back on the team, you know, there was just so many good things there. So it was like kind of this back and forth, and then obviously, you know, you're getting back into the conference and all that comes with this week.
And DeJuan Jones seems to be playing not just competently and confidently, but almost with a joy out there. Do you see that in him too when you watch video? And just are you still a little bit surprised the way this guy is coming along, I guess?
Well, I think he's played well. He certainly has his best football ahead of him, and he still has a lot of work to do. But the energy that he's bringing, seeing him run down the field and all those type of things, it's contagious. He likes playing the game, and then that's what I'm talking about. Those type of steps that we're taking right now are huge, and now he's got to continue to build on that. Again, bigger challenge this week. But when he's on and he's doing things the right way and using really good discipline and he's preparing at a high level, which I thought he had a really good week of preparation last week, much better than the week before. All of a sudden he started to play better. He's going to have to do it again this week, bigger challenge.
Over here far right, second row, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Outside these walls, you were probably here, but did you see Justin Fields getting sacked 9 times, and what did it prompt?
Yeah, no, I didn't see it. All I did was read and hear about it, and so I'm not sure exactly how that shook. Not a great start, but there's a lot of young quarterbacks that haven't had great starts. You think about Peyton Manning's rookie season and everything he went through there, and the hardest thing in that league is just being able to pull yourself off the canvas and continue to work through. He and I talked about that after the Northwestern game. That when you go to the NFL, you're going to have several days just like this, just days you wake up and you got to go figure it out again. And I think what survives in that league is the resilience of young quarterbacks to continue to identify what went wrong and get better and fix it. And so one thing I know about him is he's competitively tough, and he'll fix the problems and he'll be back.
Did you text him at all, or
I haven't had a chance to talk to him, no.
Deep back right, Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Ryan, with your offensive line, you guys have had Thayer out now for a little bit. It seems like you guys are starting to develop some chemistry there. How are you going to balance when he's ready to come back with keeping that chemistry, but also making sure that your best 5 are on the field?
Yeah, I mean, the good news is we've built some depth there, so we have the ability to roll some guys, but we'll take into consideration that chemistry, like you're saying. And, it kind of works itself out more times than not, where, someone gets banged up or whatever, and you have to get another guy in there. And, the offensive line is not someone that, typically that you roll positions and roll guys in and out, but, we'll talk to the O-line this week and have Stoud look at it and see if that's appropriate this week, and if it is, we'll do it.
At linebacker, when you have a couple guys that are veterans leading the team, if you have these young guys emerging, do you start to see a little bit of a culture shift in the room? And I'm not saying it's like addition by subtraction, but is it almost like a little healthy to see that culture shift to the guys who are starting to produce?
I think every year is a new dynamic, and we lost a lot of strong leadership in that room, and so this year it's different. And anytime you lose 4 players from one position group like that who have such a strong presence and so much production, it's going to be bumpy. And I think they're starting to forge that new identity a little bit, but it has been a work in progress this year for sure.
Over here to the far right, Don Berry, WPSD, or WBNS, 10 TV.
Thank you, Jared.
That's Paducah, Kentucky, WPSD.
Thank you very much. Ryan, you look at Rutgers, how big of a challenge, and how about the Greg Schiano factor?
Yeah, I think he's done a very, very good job. In these past 2 years of getting his team ready, and does a good job coaching in all 3 phases. It is a challenge going on the road, and I think you see what he did last year. Certainly, playing some really good football, and then last week, took up north all the way to the fourth quarter. Played excellent defense in the fourth quarter. Has the guys believing and playing hard. So, it's going to be a Big Ten conference, road game that we got to do a really good job and get on the road and handle the environment. It'll be a good environment there. He'll have them rocking, and so need a great week of preparation.
The youth movement on this team is well documented. With that said, do you feel like your defense is turned the corner, or do you really like what you're seeing now?
I think we made some strides, and I think this week will be another big test for us. But I think you just overall see us changing some things up, playing with great aggression. But again, we'll know that more here in a couple of weeks and figure out where we're at. We got a big challenge this week, and as it continues to grow, I don't think that the answer's here yet. We gotta see where we're at in this thing. It's week to week and be on the bring it week to week. It's not, you do a good job 1 week and then move on. And again, it's going to be a whole different game this week, whole different challenge.
Second row left, Doug Lamorese, Cleveland.com.
Ryan, I just want to ask about Paris Johnson. It's like a big-time guy, big-time recruit, moved inside. I feel like we haven't talked about him much. How's he, maybe just because he's doing his job every week. I don't know. How's he played so far?
I think anytime when you don't notice a guard, then he's doing a heck of a job. I think his approach has been excellent. He's learning the position. It's not easy in there, and I think that's something that probably got glossed over was, Luke Whippler, Paris Johnson, DeJuan Jones, Nick gets moved to left, Thayer goes inside. I mean, it's 5 guys doing something new for the first time. And while they've practiced together against our defense, there's a style there, there's a 4-down scheme, kind of the same thing over and over again. Now you see different patterns, different styles, different spacings, and then coming over to the sideline and making adjustments. And then certainly not having Stud here for those couple of weeks. I mean, that was a bumpy time for those guys, and I give them a lot of credit. They've stuck together. I think the offensive line room, their culture, their energy, their dedication, their buy-in is off the charts, and I give Stud a lot of credit for that, for maintaining that during this time. But Paris is one of those guys that's a major contributor to that.
You've mentioned a couple times this season, as we see maybe guys playing time change from week to week, you say, well, they practice better, and that affected it. We know that's how it always is, right? The better you practice, the more opportunities you get. But are you tying that together any more this year than in past years? I mean, it feels like you guys aren't afraid to say, hey, well, just because this guy got 40 snaps last week, maybe he'll get 5 this week because somebody else had a better week of practice. How's that working out?
Well, I think it's working out, and I think we're getting better, but I also think, to your point, there were so many guys with such little experience and such few snaps that it's like, you're trying to figure out what is the best moving forward, and you want to give guys opportunities to play, but at the end of the day, they have to perform. And so what do you go on? You go on their performance in a game, and then you try to project the best you can based on what you see in practice. And when you have so many guys who have such little experience, there's some projecting that goes on there, and all you can do is go on what you see.
And I think we could ask you 50 questions about 4th down decision making because it can be so fascinating. Sometimes in a world where it feels like you need 7s to win games these days, 3s aren't going to win you many games anymore. Can a punt in the right situation be more aggressive than a long field goal? If you think we're going to punt them down, pin them inside the 5, stop them, get it back, and try for another 7.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the whole idea of the plan to win and playing the field position game is exactly what you just said. But you have to execute it, and then you actually have to stop them, and then you have to get the ball back. I mean, those are the things you consider when you're making those decisions.
Thank you. Deep left, Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now and Sports Illustrated.
Hey, Coach, I want to know from a position group perspective. You've got 4 games under your belt now, where you were going into week 1, where you are after week 4. Which group has made the most progress?
Think about that for a sec. Since week 1?
Yes.
I'd probably say the defensive backs and probably the offensive line, I'd say. I guess you could say the running backs because of the way Trey's run. But there's been progress across the board, but those probably stick out.
I think we're going to have a chance to talk to Haskell Garrett. There's probably nobody on your team that's been through, as much as he's been through in the last 2 years, at least not that we know of. He seems to have this lightness about him. He's holding hands with his nephews coming off the field. He's playing, having fun. Had a huge game last week. What's been the most enjoyable thing that you've been able to witness watching him grow and everything he's gone through?
Well, I just think, again, we all know it's well documented what happened to him, and then him being able to respond the way he did. I think that was kind of a crossroads for him, and that was huge for him as a person. The football player is the football player, but I think that he's really changed as a person, just in a lot of ways, and because of that, he's going to be a great dad. He's going to be a really good husband, and he's going to be successful whatever he does after football. Hopefully that's after a long career in the NFL, but that's probably what I'm most proud of.
Second row right, Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you probably can't answer this with any certainty until you go through practice, but what's your level of confidence that CJ's shoulder will be good enough for him to start? And can you give any details of what the shoulder issue is?
Yeah, I really can't do that. Yeah, I mean, I'm optimistic that coming off of Sunday's practice and the feedback that I've got from the trainers and our medical staff and from CJ that we're ready to move forward this week.
How did Kyle play? I know that you watched it in detail.
He was inconsistent, with some of his reads. I thought that early on he was a little nervous. He did make some nice throws when he saw it, and I thought there was some really good plays in there. But there was also some that he kind of got away with, and we just got to do a great job of recognizing what the pre-snap movement keys are, the post-snap movement keys are, and just trust our eyes. But when you're starting for the first time, there's a lot going on, and I think the next time he's in that moment, he'll be a little more settled.
And I know you don't want to belabor what happened with Kayvon, but what exactly happened? I didn't actually see it, but I guess it came on the field and was waved off. Can you explain what happened?
Yeah, I'd rather not get into all that right now. I kind of just want to move forward.
Fourth row left, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Ryan, were you at all open to the idea that Kyle could have played so well that he just sort of took the job and ran with it moving forward? And how does the fact that, he wasn't quite that, also wasn't terrible, was kind of right down the middle,
Right.
How does that, I don't know, complicate your evaluation and decision at that position moving forward?
Not right now. I mean, we'll continue to build and grow, and it was good to get snaps under his belt. And same thing with Jack. I think it was good for both of those guys as we move forward. Just see what comes this next couple of weeks. But Kyle, for the most part, and so same thing with Jack. They pretty much played the way that they practiced, and so. But I think now it gives them a little bit more of a reference point moving forward. Of okay, this is maybe how it looks in practice, but this is the reality of the game.
And you mentioned a couple times here, there's first and second year guys who are playing in place of probably third, fourth, and fifth year guys who maybe anticipated a different role for them. I know that can be complicated to manage at times. So just like, how has that impacted the vibe of the team at all, if in any way?
Well, I think it's what we were talking about before. Is just you kind of count on maybe some of the older guys who are playing to be the strong leaders, the guys that you're counting on in the field to be the voice. And when some of those guys are still trying to get those reps under their belt and find their role and find their identity, then it makes for sometimes a dynamic that isn't ideal. But the idea is that as we move forward and we start to fill those roles, we have some guys who have really good leadership skills, and I think they're going to really embrace those. And you're starting to see that already. I thought last week some guys stepped up and spoke in front of the team, 3 different guys in 3 different moments, and the message was right on point. And so we're getting there, but it is a work in progress for sure.
You care to say who those guys were? Who stepped up?
Yeah, it was right after the game. It was Garrett Wilson in the locker room. It was Xavier Johnson in front of the team before one of the practices, and it was Jerron Cage after a Thursday practice. And the messages were great. Garrett's message was that what is our standard? We have to create the standard here. It's not about just winning and losing, and that was last week. And then Xavier Johnson talked about that every rep matters. We can't let reps get away from us, which is something that we learned from Pete Warner the year before. And then Jerron Cage was just talking about how we hadn't quite played a whole game 9 units strong, and that we weren't quite there yet. And let's bring this thing together. So when you start to hear those things from your players and from your teammates, then you're starting to get there. And I think that's all part of this process and this building process as we go into, I guess, the middle part of the season.
Got time for just a few more. Back row left, Mark Schneider, press pros.
Hey, Ryan, everybody kind of knew that when Coach Shiano went back to Rutgers, they would have a chance to turn this around. Going into that first half, it could have been 24-3, and then name your score. I'm sure most people thought that. What is happening? Because as coaches, you see the film, you can see body language, just how they go. I'm not talking scheme, just about how they carry themselves. What is happening there?
I mean, I'm not there, so I don't know, but I know that they've been very competitive, and they've played with great effort, and they're executing what they've been asked to execute, and with execution fuels emotion, and it sounds and seems like they're buying into what Greg is preaching to them.
And with regard to the offensive line, we were at practice, and all of a sudden we saw these bodies at different positions. When did that start. I mean, it's just, a lot of people would call it like weird science, that you would take something that's been successful and then taking that chance to have people accept it and buy into it and actually have it work.
You talking about having so many guys in?
You know, changing your offensive line the way you did.
Oh, well, the idea is that you try to find, you know, the best 5. And, you know, that means we had to move some pieces around. And, you know, I think that, you know, we have kind of a best 6 right now. You know, with Matt is proven that he can play with those guys, and that's been great. But that's again, when you talk about the culture of that room, you know, Thayer Munford is one of the more unselfish players I've ever been around. That's why he's our Block O recipient. You know, that's why he's a captain. You know, he went and said, no, what's better for the team is that I move to guard. Now, it certainly is going to pay huge dividends for him down the road, because I think a lot of clubs will be able to see him play multiple positions. He's already proven himself at tackle. Now he's proven he can play guard. But, you know, the easy thing for him to say is, well, I'm not moving. But he didn't do that. He put the Buckeyes first. He put the team first. And that goes to speak on the culture of that room and how impressed I've been with the unselfishness of that entire room. And to your point, that allowed us to put the best 5 in the field.
Right in front of Mark, Buckeye Sports Bulletin.
Ryan, I think you're up to 9 transfers now in the 2018 class. You've got a couple other guys in that class who are dealing with long-term injuries. Is there a reason behind that attrition that you can see, and how do you go about covering the loss of what would have been a lot of your senior class?
Yeah, I think when you look around the country, it's similar, if not, you know, worse in other places than here. I think for the most part, you know, we've done a really good job in that area. But as we're getting into the season, we're seeing some roles fall into place. That's where you're seeing some of that. And I've never been one to run guys off the team. You know, I guess there's situations I probably could have done that in the spring or the preseason, but that's not the way we do things here. We care about our guys, and so I think, again, it's more a product of the situation in college football right now, where there's one-time transfer, there's name, image, likeness. They can, you know, play for the first 4 games, then decide to walk out with really no penalty, and they get the redshirt year back. I think those are all the dynamics at play, and I think when you look at our guys, you know, we're better than most, and I think that speaks to our culture.
You're down to, I think, also 7 scholarship linebackers. One of them is Herb and Mitchell. One of them is true freshman. One of them got here in July. Have you looked at all into moving anybody into that room, like CJ Stoud in high school? Is that something you've looked at?
I mean, I think we're okay right now. We also have, you know, Kate Kaczynski and Ryan Batch, who both play special teams for us and do a good job. And so, you know, I think we're okay right now. But if something disastrous were to happen, we'd have to look into that. But that's where, you know, Steele made the move over there and was very impressed with how he's done that. We added EA to there. So, again, you know, as of right now, I think we're okay. But, yeah, I mean, if we were to take a bunch of hits there, we'd have to come up with a plan.
Third row left, Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, in recent weeks you've had a few more guys on the availability report. Munford, you said, was not a long-term thing. He's missed a couple games now. Are you hoping to be closer to all hands on deck for Big Ten play, because you're missing 3 veterans there with Vincent, Jean-Baptiste, and Tyreek Smith on your defensive front? I know you don't want to talk about specifics, but in general, are you going to be closer to full go for this week?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to get some of those guys back for sure. But you know, some of them are, you know, linger a little bit. There's not much you can do about that. We want to make sure the guys are safe. But at the end of the day, that's not my decision to make. That's the medical staff's. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm optimistic that we'll get those guys back for this game.
And just Bucke, the play he made, taking 20-yard pass and turning it into 85. Just is this a guy that needs more touches? I guess, and I know that's hard because you've got so many other guys. But is this a guy that's earned maybe some more opportunities? I guess.
I can't say enough about how impressed I've been with his approach every day. He works really, really hard. He's tough. He plays special teams. He takes his job very serious. He's got a chance to be an excellent leader. I think the future is extremely bright for Emeka, and I couldn't be happier with what he's done so far, his approach, his maturity level. And so, you know, that's a tough room right now, to break through, but you don't hear a word from him. And this is a guy who's highly recruited, and, you know, he's only going to get better. And, you know, the more opportunities we can give him, we will, when appropriate. But again, the future is extremely bright for him, especially as he just keeps working hard and putting days together on top of days with no expectations, and you can see what he's capable of.
And final questions over here. The new guy from Channel 10 is Adam.
Coach, kind of going off of what you just said, Chris Olave, which is 2 catches in the last 2 games, do you have to make a more concerted effort to get him the ball, or is it just sometimes a Garrett game, sometimes a...
Yeah, it kind of is, and when you only play a half of football, it gets harder. And there's just certain times where you design plays for certain guys that comes up, but a lot of times when you design a play and you're one of the top receivers in the country, they're going to put 2 guys on them or back them way up and run them out of there, and the ball's going to come somewhere else. And certainly we want to get those guys as many touches as we possibly can, but there's just games where that doesn't happen, and it's a tribute to obviously his talent level. Guys know where he is at all times, whether it's seeing where he is and doubling him, or just really, backing up so that they can't, take a shot downfield, as they know he's very, very good at that. But again, I can't say enough about his approach too. And, he hasn't let any of that stuff bother him. He's been a good leader in this time, and he's really helped that wide receiver unit get stronger. So he's got a lot of catches ahead of him.
Coach, thank you very much.
Here to say.
We got a thread on our board right now asking.
All righty, we'll open it up. Front row, or second row middle. Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Hi, Matt. Could you describe the dynamics of how play calling is going on the defensive side? Obviously, you're doing that now. How does that work, and what kind of costs are there? Why ask you to do it?
Sort of a group effort, particularly game day. I mean, just sorting through adjustments, and we're all in the meetings together throughout the week, and kind of put a call sheet together and what we like in certain situations. So in a lot of ways, the game calls itself, and then it's, again, a group effort during the game on the sideline and on the headsets to get things adjusted and see what calls we like. So really been a group effort.
And how would you say the defense has progressed, and what are your biggest concerns still?
I think we've seen improvement in some areas, but we'll really be tested getting into league play. Just trying to play fast and be consistent. Just looking for improvement in our execution of our schemes.
Fourth row left, Colin Gabe, Rivals.
How have you seen your secondary? Especially with all the young guys that you guys have. How have you seen kind of them improve, kind of rally around this kind of youth movement that you've seen guys like Denzel Ward, Cam Martinez? Like, how have you seen kind of that room change based on kind of the youth movement that you guys have?
Yeah, if you're in that room every day, you're not surprised. Our veteran players are extremely talented, and so are our young players. And our young players have worked extremely hard for months now. Coming off of last season, some of the guys, particularly the guys you mentioned, really had great growth through the spring and continued it throughout the summer. So it's been fun to watch all that hard work come to fruition for them.
How much of an impact, especially this past week, see the emergence of a little bit more of a pass rush, and I'm curious about how the secondary kind of responded to the ability for a defensive line to get to the quarterback, the linebackers to get to the quarterback. How did they, did they see kind of more opportunities come their way because of that amount of pressure, or how did that, change the secondary?
Yeah, that's kind of what we preach in the defensive unit meetings is you can't play defense in a vacuum. There's no LeBron of defensive football. It truly takes all 11 guys. It's not just one person that can kind of overtake the game. So it's, there are times when our secondary makes a play as a result of a ball that was forced by a quarterback due to pressure. And there are times when our defensive line gets home, our pass rush gets home because the secondary has made the quarterback hold the ball for an extra count. So just trying to work together and understanding that, if we have success on defense, that, whoever got credit for making the play, there were likely 10 other guys that made major contributions to that success.
Fourth row right, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, how challenging is it as a coach to be patient with freshmen, both in performance on the field, but also maturity and leadership? And how does that dynamic work? And you also have some seniors and upperclassmen. How do they work together?
Yeah. It's challenging. I think you mentioned it's as much off the field as it is on the field, and we know that if your habits aren't great off the field, then that will rear its head in the games on the field. So constant effort to be managing those habits, and some are further along than others, and it definitely helps to have some veteran guys in the room that have seen it all before and kind of been through it and made some of the mistakes that the younger guys are making, so they can help give them some guidance. So another challenge.
When do you see guys stop being squirrely as freshmen?
Not as soon as you like. I can tell you that. No. Hard to put the time on it. Different for every guy, but I think sometimes it depends on how soon they realistically see themselves having a chance to be a major contributor, and sometimes that maybe makes you grow up a little faster.
Second row right, Tim May, Letterman Row.
As you watch Denzel Burke after last week compared to going into the first week, where have you just seen big progress in him? Obviously, he was good enough to start in the opener, but what have you seen that you've really liked about his progress?
Yeah, Denzel's got a rare skill set, and he's another guy who works really hard at it, and those of us that were able to watch him in the spring are not surprised by the success that he's had. We saw all that ability, and you see the product on Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, and we see the process Tuesday for 30 to 45 minutes after the rest of the field is, the rest of the guys are going in the locker room. So there's no substitution for in-game experience and seeing the speed of the game and how it moves, and playing in the shoe and playing on the road and those types of things. So I think just there's a degree of execution that comes with seeing it over and over again and having some experience. So I've been very pleased with Denzel.
Yeah, and Matt, when Coach Day came to you guys after the second game and said, I got to make some changes here, was that a big gulp moment for you too? And just how would you describe how y'all as a group, a defensive coaching group, handled that transition?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was a humbling time and still is for all of us. Very high expectations here at Ohio State, and rightfully so. So it was a change, and it continues to be a change for all of us. And this is something that we are arm in arm in as a defensive staff and as a coaching staff. And at the end of the day, we are in a relentless pursuit of how to get it right and how to improve. And really, that's what we are focused on.
But did you come into that armed already with ideas of some things that you even thought needed to have a shake-up or a change?
I think every coach has things that they see maybe slightly differently, and just sometimes it can be just a little thing where, as much as anything, it's a comfort level. There's only so many hours in a day, and you kind of, whether it's little things like how you script practice or whatever it may be. Just not that it needed to be changed in some areas, but sometimes it's just, well, I'm a little more comfortable doing it this way, and those types of things. So there's a couple things that maybe have changed in the day to day, but again, we're sort of all working in chorus on how to get it right.
Second row left, Nathan Berry, Cleveland.com.
Now, after these 7 games this season, why has he not been very involved, and what more do you guys need to see from him to get him to where I assume you all thought he would be this season?
Yeah, I think it's easy to overlook the fact that Seven, missed all of the spring with a knee setback, and something that he had battled for quite a long time, and battled that through the summer, and then had a setback when he got to camp. So, I think if I don't get the luxury of watching a ton of NFL, but I see the ticker just when I walk by the TV, and I always see, so-and-so out 4 to 6 weeks with this and that or the other, and, there's a timetable to get back. I think when you're injured, no matter how much experience you have, there's a timetable to get back to where you were, particularly when over the course of, months, you've missed a significant amount of football. And to just say that you're gonna jump right back in when you really are kind of battling your way back through an injury, I don't think that's fair to expect anybody to just jump right back in and be right at their best right away. But we've seen Seven improve every week as he's got healthier and healthier and healthier, and his attitude's been great, and he has played well here in this last game.
For Ronnie Hickman, why do you think he's been able to have the impact he has? And when you guys were looking for what was going to happen at Bullet, why was he a guy that made so much sense there?
Well, he's had an impact. He's a great football player, and he works extremely hard at it. But again, I think some of his success is as a result of a group of 10 other players that are buying in and executing their job. His interception the other night comes as a result of a quarterback that's been flushed out of the pocket by a defensive pass rush. But Ronnie's a fantastic football player, and again, if you'd seen what he had done in the spring and all through camp, and you're not surprised by how well he's played, thus far.
Right next door, Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
Continuing with Ronnie, seems the last couple games he's been deep a little more often from that bullet position. Obviously, you guys adjust to what an offense is doing, right? If they have 4 wides, or if they have 2 tight ends in the field, or whatever. But what is it in Ronnie's skill set that the times when he's been in the box in that bullet role, he can do that. Now he's back deep more. How much have his responsibilities changed, sort of, if you guys have shifted some things with the defense the last couple of games?
Well, I think you hit on it. A lot of what we do is dependent upon what the offense does, and we got in that Tulsa game, and it became a throw fest. So we played some different coverages, and we had some success early on in the Akron game, and our offense was rolling. So again, quickly became a pass tilted game in Saturday night as well. So when it's a pass tilted down, we can be a little bit more flexible with some of our coverages. But Ronnie's a versatile player, and that's kind of why we had him targeted for that bullet role, where one snap he can be down around the box playing a run, and the next snap he can be in the deep part of the field.
And this comes up, I'm sure, with lots of players. What a player does best, where he would best fit on the defense, versus what the team might need from him, right? Sometimes that matches up, maybe sometimes it's a little different. I'm wondering specifically, Lathan Ransom starts the year at cover safety, Josh is at deep safety, Josh gets hurt, Cam Martinez gets a chance and shows he looks pretty good. Now last week, Lathan is back at deep safety. Just that kind of thing, as you're trying to fit the skills of players to what you need. What's that decision-making process like? And specifically, what's it been like with where Lathan best helps this defense?
Yeah, you've got to be fluid, and it's a constant effort to get the best players on the field, and be aware of your overall depth. And we kind of had a little bit of a log jam there at cover safety with 3 really good players, and then when we lost Josh, felt like maybe that gave it needed to provide some depth at that position, and again, if you're just ranking and looking at overall, okay, how do we get our best guys on the field? We felt like that gave us a chance to move some guys around and try to prevent one guy having to play 90 snaps in a game. I mean, Bryson Shaw has played outstanding this year, but don't think anybody can go 90 plays a game for a whole season, as well as he's played. So it just felt like with 3 guys playing well and practicing well at cover safety and just getting thinned out at free safety, that move made sense.
Second row middle, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Hi, Matt. A lot of coaches who call plays swear that they want to be, swear by being in the press box. I said they see the field so much better. Other guys prefer being on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you like being on the field?
I just think, one, you get a little bit more of a feel for the game, particularly tempo. Sometimes you kind of get lost in the box of, you're kind of up there and it's heated or it's air conditioned, and you kind of just watching. But when you're down on the field, you feel the urgency of the situation. And then the probably the biggest thing for me is on the field you can really be hands-on with how you adjust the game from series to series. Where in the box you can be effective in providing information, but it's hard to. You're not articulating those adjustments to the players, and we know how important that is. And fortunately, even though we've changed, moved some things around with our game day operation, our information from the press box has been extraordinary. We've really seen everything that we needed to see and been able to adjust it pretty well.
Typically, I would think that would be the head coach's call, but in 2019, Coach Day had no problem with Jeff Hafley calling the plays from the box. So I assume that's your call, right? That if you wanted to be in the box, you would be, but you prefer being on the field. Is that accurate?
Yeah, just kind of a group decision, and just looking at, okay, what makes sense, who can do this, who can do that. The NCAA will only allow so many people to be on headsets and those types of things. So it was a big conversation, and we just felt like that was got the right pieces in the right places for us.
Fourth row left, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Matt, with the way you guys have mixed coverages the last couple of weeks, and what Doug was asking about aligning too high a little more maybe than you had previously, when you guys assessed sort of what needed to be tweaked or changed, how important was it to make sure that pre-snap picture, I guess, for the opposing quarterback wasn't so static with that post safety always in the middle of the field?
Yeah, I think it's disguise is such a big part of the game, and being able to affect the decision makers on offense, whether it's the offensive coordinator or the quarterback, being able to affect those guys with pre-snap and pre-snap disguises and some different options. In today's football, it's so important. We and again, some of that was just based on what we were getting the last 2 weeks from those opponents. Allowed us to be, maybe more multiple in some of those areas. But it'll be a constant assessment of what we're playing well, what's the right mix to present some different pictures, and constant awareness of what we need to defend and how to make a team left-handed first.
And with the way you guys play zone, some of the guys last week were talking about it just kind of takes reps to get comfortable with that, particularly the underneath guys. Just how have you seen them come along, and do you feel like they're getting better in terms of spacing and understanding concepts?
Yeah, again, it's a younger group, so with every game rep, every day we see improvement. No substitute for in-game experience, and you start to learn how the trends of how offenses are planning to attack you, and you start to recognize some similarities and you can anticipate. But they're coming along well. Mm-hmm.
Second row right, Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Matt, am I wrong? Did you also have the same situation at Maryland last year where you weren't identified as the coordinator but were calling plays?
A similar scenario, yeah.
So it's unorthodox. At least, that's not the way most teams do it, but you've been part of it twice. You just have like a magic voice or something? Do you enunciate more clearly? Like, how are you getting these roles?
I have a great answer for you, brother. Yeah. Whether the previous opportunity or this one, however they come about, you just are in constant pursuit of how to get right. So, however they shake out to you, and you have to find every resource you can. And our defensive staff has been awesome. Some things have shaken out and been a little different. But I give everybody in that room credit, that we've rallied together and in heavy pursuit of getting better every week and playing great defense.